everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm so excited to actually talk to you guys and teach you because you guys are my people. I love the healthcare industry. I love working as a nurse, and a couple of years ago I started to do this journey towards working on my health, and we'll get into that a little bit in the presentation. And so I wanted to share what I've learned, and because you guys are fellow healthcare providers and nurses, I know we have a lot of good stuff that we can cover and talk about because I'm coming from your world. So I'm excited to talk to you guys today. So let's get started. I just want to go over the agenda with you guys and kind of talk about what today's talk is about. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about who I am and how did I get into going from being an ICU nurse to a health coach and doing more of a preventative education. I'm going to talk to you about my approach and how I do that as a whole person approach. We're going to talk about the big topic for today, which is the importance of taking care of you. As a healthcare provider, we're so used to taking care of everybody else. So today we're going to get into why it's important to take care of yourself. We're going to talk about some of the side effects that happen from being in our field and in our work, good and bad. We're going to talk about why it is that healthcare providers and nurses tend not to take better care of ourselves. And we're going to get back to the basics on what it means to actually be healthy and the things you can do for yourself. And we're going to introduce some of the topics that will be coming up in further talks as we go down this series of health education. So this is just a little disclaimer. You can kind of glance over it. This is saying basically that the opinions and thoughts of this presentation are not that of Aya, and this is me being contracted to work with Aya, so this is what this slide is all about. So let's talk about why is it that I'm going to talk to you guys today. So as a nurse, I get it. I've been in the scrubs. I've been in those hospital hallways. I've been in ICU for the past 6 years, but I've actually been a nurse for 12 years before that. I worked as a CNA. So I've practically been in a hospital since I was 17 years old. So I have seen a lot, to say the least. I actually was a traveler as well, so I get the whole travel experience. I actually traveled with Aya several years ago, and so I know how that goes. And definitely have the critical care ICU mindset. And I learned from some of the best doctors, nurses, healthcare providers there are out there. So I have that perspective of things. So as a health coach, I do things as a whole body function approach. I know a lot of times people tend to specialize on certain things and no one puts the whole picture together, and we'll get into that. But my approach is looking at everything from all angles and seeing how things are working for your body and what's going on in your life. I'm kind of your guide on the side. At the end of the day, we all are responsible for taking care of our own health, but it's nice to have someone there who has some expertise in the area, can give some guidance. I've helped hundreds of clients on one-on-one basis. I worked at Google for a while as their health coach, their RN health coach. I had a really good time working with the engineers there and a lot of the people I still keep in contact with, so it was a great experience. I've done a lot of group classes, group setting, group teaching, studied health and wellness and prevention from a lot of the top leaders, and so I'm really excited to talk to the nurses. I was doing all of this for the past several years, and I came to the conclusion of, wait a second, the people who need to take care of themselves and their health the most are us, because we're taking care of everyone else. So that is why I'm excited to talk to you guys today. So how did this happen? Like, how did I go from this workspace of being in the ICU, which is critical, it's a lot of times end of life, it's crazy chaotic, it's too late to kind of do preventative measures at that point. So how did I go from that to working at Google and working with clients more on the outpatient setting and doing more preventative health and wellness, and to even starting my own business, which is You Heart Life, being a cardiac nurse? I felt that was appropriate. Let's get into the journey I went on. So like I said, I was a traveler too. If there was an adventure to be had, I was having it. I loved doing anything and everything that there was out there. If someone said, have you ever tried this? I said, no. That means I was trying it the next week. I loved adrenaline. I was an adrenaline junkie, having the time of my life. But unfortunately, I loved adrenaline, and adrenaline did not love me. So what happens when the nurse becomes the patient? I don't know if you guys have ever experienced being on the other side of the bedside, but it's not a fun world. And so that's what my big passion is to help us with preventing the same kind of situation that I went through. But basically, I ended up having a lot of heart arrhythmias. So I don't know if it was just I was a cardiac nurse and meant to be cardiac in all aspects, but this was not in my favor. Started having a lot of cardiac arrhythmias, started having a lot of hormonal issues. There was just a lot of things that my body was basically telling me I was doing too much, and so that's kind of hard when you're a super active person and you're having all this fun and you're doing all the chaos in the ICU. And what I came to realize was that I was swaying I was swaying too much to one side, basically. So there's a couple things I learned from this experience. One, I was using up all my cortisol for my lifestyle, my career, and my need for speed. So my adrenal glands were basically like, we cannot keep up with your demands. It's a lot of fun, but you kind of need to take some time to rest, recover, rejuvenate. I also realized you have to be your own health advocate, and that was kind of a lot of what sparked my passion to want to help people prevent getting into the healthcare system, because I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but there's some flaws, and you have to be your own health advocate. And being nurses and being healthcare providers, we have a little bit of an advantage to know some of that stuff, but you really have to listen to your body. You have to really ask for the things that you're concerned about and stick up for yourself. Nurses are the worst patients, actually, next to doctors, because sometimes we do think we know too much, and we wait till we're practically dying before we go see a doctor. So, yeah, I've kind of learned that experience. And through all this, I couldn't blame anybody at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it was my job to take care of myself, and so I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to find that balance and really, reduce the stress and get things back on track. And the big takeaway, too, is that you have to take care of yourself if you want to take care of others. So let's talk about this whole body approach that I do with my clients and with people. Is I do a whole body approach. So if you look at things as a whole body approach, you kind of look at what are the contributing factors. You go back to the root cause. What's causing the headache, or what's causing the stomach upset? Instead of just covering it up and putting a Band-Aid on it, let's actually dig down to what's going into play for this. So I look at all aspects. I look at physical activity. I look at diet, nutrition, obviously, but also your relationships, also your career. How do you feel about the trajectory path of your career? How are your finances? How much fun are you having? How much life activity are you out there getting involved with? Even spirituality takes a role in your health. And then, of course, especially rest, relaxation, and sleep, and then stress. Of course, we all know the effects that stress can have on our bodies, and we'll do a future talk in detail on stress. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the story of the blind man with the elephant. It's an old ancient story that came out of India, basically about these blind men, or these men in the dark, who went into a room, and they were all told to feel the object in front of them and then describe what they were feeling. And so depending on which part of this elephant that they were feeling on, they all had a different description of what was in front of them. And so when they came out of the room, they had this big discussion and argument, and everyone was like, no, it was a spear, no, it was a brick wall. And depending on what they were looking at, nobody was putting the big picture together. And so what a health coach does is it looks at all the signs and symptoms, looks at all the issues happening in your life, looks at everything going on, and says, okay, guys, what we have here is an elephant. Let's address the elephant in the room. Let's put it all together and figure out a game plan for taking care of yourself. So I thought that was a really cool analogy to kind of share of like what health coaches do. So today's talk, we're going to talk about you guys taking care of yourselves. And so first, before we get into that, we have to kind of go back to why did we even get into the medical field in the first place? I mean, it's a tough field at times, and it requires a lot of giving back to other people. Sometimes you don't always receive that same in return. But these are the main reasons that people get into be in the medical field. And obviously one is to help others. That's definitely a big answer that people have. It's definitely a high in demand field. There will never be a lack of jobs. It pays well. There's definitely a lot of variety. I mean, you never have 2 days that look like each other. You never know what you're going to see. You never know what you're going to get into. And it's exciting. There's not a bad story that you can have coming out of a day in the hospital. There's always something to tell. So these are some of the reasons why we even get into this field in the first place. And so what are the side effects of working in healthcare? I'm going to go over the good and the bad. So first, let's look at the good. We get a lot of satisfaction from helping others. This is why we got into what we're doing. we also have this sense of feeling needed. We're taking care of people who need our help. And so it's nice to be that person that can kind of go in and almost be like an unsaid hero and save the day, right? So it's exciting to tell your friends and family about your story. Sometimes don't do that over the dinner table. Some people not in the medical field may not appreciate that. Time flies when you're having fun, and this is to say that, those 12-hour shifts are super long, but some days it's just you're running, and so that day goes by pretty quickly, and like there's never a dull moment. Saving lives, like I said, the heroes, we have those big hearts and the strong stomachs that you need to be in this field, and you can take pride in your career. Like, it's a very respectable career. It's very awesome that people dedicate their lives to taking care of others in the situations that we find ourselves in the hospitals. And scrubs for a uniform, to me, is a perk. That's basically like wearing pajamas to work. That's comfortable. It's awesome. I love that part. And then you develop these really good problem-solving and critical thinking skills that may even help you outside the medical field. And, of course, we have that multitasking arena. So those are some of the good side effects, but let's be real, there's the other side of things. There are some negative side effects that come from working in the healthcare field that we should address and just put out on the table. And for you guys, I don't know how it is at your hospitals, and you can always put in the chat box how you feel, but for me, the charting is crazily out of control, more charting than you ever wanted to do in your life, right? We get onto the field so we wouldn't have to sit in front of computers, and now it feels like that's a lot of what our job is. So that's always an aspect. The long hours and, of course, the tired legs. Sometimes we don't even sit down at all during the 12-hour shifts. Putting other needs before your own. That's a huge part of our job. So there's a lot of times when you're not eating, you're not drinking, you're not going to the bathroom, you're just running, you're in that adrenaline set, and you're just taking care of everyone else's needs, the families, the patients, the doctors, and your own needs get put on the back burner. So that's always a little challenging. There's always a chance of a bodily fluid rain shower, and the nurses and the healthcare providers on this call will totally appreciate that comment and understand you probably having flashbacks of your last couple of shifts. But that's not always the glamorous part of our job. And some days the things can be frustrating is if you have family or you're dating or married to someone who is not a medical professional, and you try to explain your day to them. Sometimes they don't understand how your day went. Sometimes you'll get those comments where people are like, oh, it must be nice to only work 3 days a week. And in your head, you're like, yeah, but you don't even understand what happened in those 3 days. So that can be a little challenging, too, with your relationships. There's always the staffing issues at hospitals, which is why we even have travelers in the first place, which is why travelers are a blessing to the hospitals. The administration politics, I won't even get into details on that because you guys know how that is. The stressful situations that we see just in the fact of what our jobs are, and the unknown of the shift. Sometimes the unknown of the shift can be stressful because you might try to plan your shift, and then, of course, we know all chaos can break out. So that's some of what happens in our world. So are you immune? Because you're a healthcare professional working to help people in the hospital. Are you immune to the health issues that can happen? And, of course, the answer is no. We're still human beings. We're still people, and if we don't take care of ourselves and if we don't balance out our life, we too could end up being a patient just like I was. So there's a phenomenon that's spreading throughout the hospitals. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. I don't know if you've experienced it. It's not MRSA. It's not VRE or any of the other super bugs. It's not even the super thugs. I know we're having a lot of issues with some violent stuff happening in hospitals. The flu, and, of course, the whole Ebola thing that we had to all learn how to put on those spacesuits for. So it's not even that. I'm not even talking about all that kind of crazy chaos. I'm talking about hospital and healthcare burnout. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this at all or if you've had nurses or friends who have, but it's a big deal in the hospitals. There's a lot of doctors and a lot of nurses, a lot of healthcare professionals who are feeling burnout. So what is the reason why? Like, why are people who went into this field because we love taking care of people, we love doing our jobs, we love doing what we do, why are we getting burnout from it? And I'm going to tell you, the number one reason for this is stress. So there's a lot of things that cause stress in our lives. There's a lot of reasons that we feel stressed. There's a lot of things that happen, and everyone handles stress differently, which is why next week we're going to have a big call and chat about stress and how to deal with it as a healthcare professional and some of the reasons on why we are stressed. So we'll get into that in a future call. But stress is the number one reason for burnout in the hospital system, so we want to prevent that. And I love this slide because it's one of those hilarious memes that people create on all kinds of things that happen in the hospital. You guys can chat in the box if you've ever seen any of these. I've personally never seen a bear in a hospital, but as you can see, it's apparently a potential. Of course, Joint Commission is always a stressful time, stressful week when you're in the hospital. And, you know, I love this one slide where it talks about hospitals are the only place where the word positive is a bad thing. And if any of you are oncology nurses or work in the oncology ward, I'm sure you see a lot of that when people get positive results. In the ER, sometimes you see a lot of positive, maybe HIV, different kind of things like that. So in our world, positive is not always a good thing. And of course, if the equipment doesn't work and you don't have the staffing you need, it can all be very stressful. So because we need to take care of ourselves and we need to prevent things from happening to us, and we kind of need to keep our bodies intact, I just want to share a few interesting facts of the leading cause of death. And of course, we all know heart disease is the number one. About 17.7 million people die of heart disease globally every year, and this is from the World Health Organization. And being a cardiac nurse, I mean, obviously that's going to be job security for me, but the thing that's disheartening to me is that heart disease is largely preventable. And so how is one of the things on earth that's killing us the most something that we can totally prevent through our lifestyle, through diet changes? There's a small component of it that's genetic, but the majority of it is stuff that we can do and work on. So the good news in that is that means that we have work to do. We can do things about it. It's not just an inevitable thing. We can work on our health and prevent some of this. And then just an interesting fact, a lot of people always have these fears and worries about sharks. I love the ocean and personally get in it all the time. I'm down here in San Diego, and so we have the great weather for that. And people are always like, how do you do that? There's so many sharks, blah, blah, blah. And actually, the number one killer for animals is mosquitoes. So jump in the ocean and hide from the mosquitoes, right? So that's just an interesting fact on another thing with that. And keeping your immune system and keeping your defenses up will also help fight back against anything a mosquito may bring your way. Is having your own internal defense system will help out with that. And then unfortunately, humans, we are having a lot of violence. I know you guys see in the news and everything that's happening. And so we need to learn to take care of our stress levels and manage any kind of health issues we're having so that we don't have all these just things going on in the world that lead to other issues. So that's just some fun facts on why we need to take care of ourselves, because there are some things out there that might get us. And why is it that healthcare workers do not take better care of themselves? And this is a big one because, you know, this is our world. We're teaching everyone else on how to take care of themselves. You know, we're educating our patients on the things they should and shouldn't do. And yet sometimes we are the most unhealthy people around. And I think a lot of that has to do with we're too busy taking care of everybody else. And at the end of the day, when there's no time left, then our needs and our taking care of ourselves get put on the back burner. And if you do that for a day, it's not a big deal, but it's an accumulative process over years and years of being a healthcare provider, being a nurse, and taking care of lives that it catches up to you. And it totally caught up to me. I mean, I was having fun with it all, but there wasn't a balance for sure. So some of us feel guilty if we take time for ourselves when our patients or our family needs us. So this could be inside the hospital. This could be outside in your home life. But because we do have such big hearts to help others, we tend to feel guilty if we take some time to go to get a massage, or if we take an hour for ourselves, especially if you have kids and your kids want to hang out with you, or if your friends want to go out and you're like, oh, I just want to chill at home. You feel guilty for saying no to these things, and that makes it hard too. There is no time. That's a huge factor. I mean, if you do a 12-hour shift, it's very hard to say, okay, great, now I've done my 12-hour shift, let me do a whole bunch of meal prepping, and let me go to the gym, and let me do all these things. I mean, your day, you're just so exhausted, you just want to lay on the couch. So that's why a lot of importance comes into play on your days off, and having that disconnect between work and your life, and maybe not picking up some of those extra shifts that you were hoping to pick up. And finding the time to take care of yourself. I know a lot of times we use time as an excuse, but, you make times for the things that are important to you. And so your health needs to be an important part of your life. The more energy part, I know, I totally get it. Sometimes there just isn't the energy. But the interesting part is that obviously rest and sleep is going to help rejuvenate and give you your energy back. But also exercising is kind of like a car battery. You got to charge the battery, and you can't just charge the battery and let your car sit in the driveway. You've got to take it for some laps around the block to actually really charge the battery. And the same thing goes for your energy levels. I don't know if you guys work out or if you go, do a physical activity, but most of the time afterwards, you may feel a little tired, but you actually have a lot more energy after the fact. You feel better. You're glad you did it. So it's just getting yourself to get into that mode. We think we're invincible. This is a big one. I thought I was invincible too. I was like, I can do this, I can do that, whatever, nothing can stop me. I'm active, I do what I want. And it caught up to me. So, whether it's you're super active or whether you're super sedentary, you're swaying one way or the other, and you've got to find that happy median. Nothing in extreme is kind of less than here. So don't extremely be lazy and don't extremely be active. Don't extremely, work all the time or extremely don't do anything. So there's a balance. You got to find that happy balance. Sometimes we just don't want to appear weak, and I know this is a hard thing in the hospitals. You always want to try and keep up with everyone else, especially if you're a new graduate or a new nurse, or if you're newly learning like a new skill set, like going into the ICU. You don't want to appear weak. You want to feel like you've got it all under control and you've got everything taken care of, and that's kind of a wrong mindset. You want people to help you. You want to help yourself, and speak up for yourself and let people know if you're feeling challenged and whatnot. Life will catch up to us. So whether you're making good decisions with your healthy habits or making bad decisions, it will catch up to you either way. You'll either find the benefits or you'll feel the other side of it, which is not so good. And also this whole idea of staying in survival mode and not thriving. And some people don't even recognize that they're in survival mode. Like you're just go, go, go. Like you're doing what's got to be done. It needs to be taken care of. You go with the flow. It has to happen. And then you don't realize when's the last time that you actually felt fully alive and like you were like peace with things and having a good time. So capturing yourself in those moments is also a good thing to recognize as well. So then with all this knowledge and background, realizing why we got into the field in the first place, some of the good and bad side effects of what's happening, and the reasons why we don't take care of ourselves, maybe now we can say, okay, great, I've come to that realization, you're right, I need to take care of myself, it is important. How do you start taking better care of yourself? And so the big takeaway from this is basically you need to take care of yourself. And by doing that, you need to go back to the basics. And going back to the basics basically means what it says. You go back to the basic things of what makes our body healthy, what makes our body run, taking care of the stress that we have in our lives, hydrating, making sure that your intake and output is in balance, just like all the patients that you check on their intake and output all day long, right? Eating right, making sure you're putting good stuff in your body so your body can use those good things to fuel you to do all the tasks and things that you need to do in your daily job. Exercising, that's always a good point, is exercising is a key that we always talk about. I know the two things we always say, if you want to have a healthy life, diet and exercise. But people then think they have to go into the gym and work ridiculous amount of hours in there and they have to sweat and get crazy. And that's not always true. Sometimes it's just simply moving your body and not sitting around. And I know for our jobs, I mean, we get those taken care of real easily at our jobs. Like there's not a lot of sitting around in the hospital, but on the days off, doing it for pleasure and doing it for fun, like hiking or going back to doing the stuff you used to love, like dancing, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be in the gym doing repetitive movements and motions that you don't actually enjoy doing. You want to find things you enjoy, but then do those things. Do the activities that you love. Sleeping is a big factor, and sometimes we're so exhausted at the end of the day, but our mind is still in adrenaline mode and still going 100 miles an hour, and you're rehashing the day. You're questioning some of the decisions maybe you made. Maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should have done that. Oh, I'm worried about my patient. Oh, what the family said. There's just so many things that go on in our mind that prevent us from actually going to sleep. And then it's become a thing now where people have habits of getting on their social media or their phones, or they watch TV or something, and then they're filtering their mind with more worries and more stress because, as much as I wish I could say social media had all positive things, we know that's definitely not true. And sometimes if you're not even looking for stuff, it pops up. And so just not good stuff to fuel your mind with before bed. So a lot of it is mindset on why we're not sleeping. The other thing with sleep is that maybe we aren't, we're not disconnecting and we're not allowing our bodies to just rest. And so if we're going and we're all hard and we're just like doing things that maybe are injuring our bodies, sometimes pain can be a reason why you're not getting sleep because you're tossing and turning all night. So getting back to those basic things, getting back to what it basically means to take care of your health. Some of this we all know to do, but making it a habit is the hard part. Or figuring out how to make it happen is what takes a lot of challenge and a lot of time. And so that's what's nice about having someone as your healthy guide on the side, having a health coach, having someone who can help walk you through some of these processes. So this is one of my slides that I love too. If you're not taking care of the basics, all the other advanced techniques will not work. So in the ICU, for me, I mean, there's a higher chance sometimes that we'll have some code situations. And, you know, we have all the equipment in the ICU, we have all the monitors, and we have all the things that we could possibly do to help save that person's life. But if nobody in the room is doing CPR, we're not really doing a good job of saving that person's life. And so it is. You have to go back to the basics. Once you get the basics under control, then you can add all the other advanced techniques and things that go into the more details of taking care of your health. So for the next couple of weeks as we do these health talks, I'm going to go back to the basics and talk about some of the stuff that we kind of know to do, but there's probably reasons why we're not doing them. And we want to reset that and get back to the basics so that later on when we add in some advanced stuff for health and wellness, more details, more catering to customizing health for yourself, you already have the basics down and things will make sense. So take care of the things that you can control. There are some things that are just out of control. Like sometimes we cannot help what happens in our shifts. Like it's out of our control. You went into work thinking, let's have a good day, and things just got crazy. So we want to deal with things that we can control. That doesn't mean that we couldn't have prepped our morning before we got to work so that we'd have the best case scenario for our morning. That doesn't mean as soon as we leave the hospital that we don't start working on ways to de-stress and let go of how the day went. So there are other things that we can do. So over the next couple slides, I'm just going to give you guys a couple of tips for each of the topics that we'll go into more detail coming up in the future talks. So 3 tips for dealing with stress. Number 1 is maintain an airway. And we hear this all the time in the hospital. Obviously, all of us have airways if we're working and we're conscious and we're running around the hallways. We have an airway. But what I mean by this is just getting back to the simple thing of just breathing. Now, we're all breathing, but we tend to shallow breathe. So a lot more of taking those good, deep breaths when we're at work, even if, like, you know, you're in the moment of a crazy, chaotic situation with your patient, you can always take time to take a deep breath. Whether it's quickly a deep breath, it's still putting more conscious effort into trying to calm the situation down from the internal side. Another good thing is get outside. And I know, like, there are times when we can't always get outside in the hospital. But just even if you can, on your lunch break, just go be out outside in the sunshine for just a minute. Just get out of the environment. Just go take a breather. And even on your days off, like, don't spend all your days off inside on the computer or inside on your social media or in front of the TV. Like, get outside. Get the benefits of what actually occurs from being outside. Even if it's not sunshine, the fresh air makes a huge difference on your health. And we'll get into more detail on all of this and some of the other science behind getting outside. And then my favorite thing is remembering to laugh. Like, you got to laugh at things sometimes. Like, it may be crazy. It may be something that you didn't plan for. I mean, you may not laugh about it in the moment, but at least find time to laugh about it later. I mean, I'm sure all of us could write a book on some of the stuff that we have seen. And my big thing is people are fascinating. Like, they really are. And you put them in a situation where they feel like they've lost a lot of control for themselves and, you know, they're sick and they're scared and they're worried. Sometimes it presents in some very peculiar ways. And so I'm sure you guys are popping up in the chat box thinking about ways that you've seen this, and, you know, you can be in agreement with me on this. But next week we're going to get into a big more discussion on all of the stress and ways to help manage it and the things and tricks you can do as a healthcare provider to do with that. So let's talk about the hydrating factor. What is your I&O status? All day long, we're looking at how much intake is going in on our patients, how much they're eating, how much IV fluids they're getting, how much they're urinating, did they poop? Like we're so focused on all that with our patients that we forget, like, oh, when's the last time I had any water today? Did I eat? I don't even remember. Like, so we kind of are very bad at monitoring our own intake and output. So you have to remember to sip. And I know some hospitals get kind of crazy about how the nurses can't have drinks or food at the stations, and you have to go to the break room, and that's not always conducive to be able to get your water. But a lot of them will let you have some kind of water, you know, in the area if there's a lid on it. So just remember, just grab a sip of water as you're running to go chart something, or if you're running to go take care of a patient, or if your patient asks for ice or water, which you know they're constantly doing. When you go to get their ice or water, grab yourself a quick glass of water too. And then when you think about what you're putting in, you want to think about hydrating things. You want to dehydrate. So even if like your beverage choice is something that you were able to get, like maybe you're able to grab a soda or an energy drink or coffee, like those are all dehydrating factors. So if you're barely getting any fluid in as it is because you're so busy, don't choose things that's going to dehydrate you even more. Try to get the waters. Try to get the things that's going to help actually get you back on track with that process. And we'll talk more about these things coming up in the future talks. But nutrition-wise, thinking about your nutrition, eat whole, real foods. And I know we hear this; it's blasted all over the social media, all over the sites. Everyone talks about eating real food. But making that actually happen is another story. And I know that we have Amy giving a lot of great nutrition tips. If you haven't caught her talks, you should definitely check those out. She's doing a lot of great stuff with that and can give some great tips on how to make this actually apply in the hospital world. But just like we do in our field, where in my world in the ICU, we prepare for the worst and then we plan ahead. So if I know I'm getting a patient from the emergency room that's coming up and they're crashing and they're not doing so well, I'm going to have all the equipment in my room that I could possibly think of that I might need in that situation before the patient comes. I'm not going to wait until the patient's there and then say, oh, shoot, I need this and I need that and I need this. So the same thing applies for your food situation. We don't know how the day is going to go. I don't know when you're going to get your lunch break, but at least if you have brought your lunch from home or went down to the cafeteria and at least had the food in the area so you have at least chance to get it, it's better than coming to work with no food, no preparation, having no options, and then guess what you're doing? You're at the vending machine just trying to grab a candy bar because now you're starving, you need something. So if you have those healthy things with you, if you planned ahead before you even got to work, makes things a little bit easier in the situation. And then a big tip I always say is like fuel for the day ahead, lessen before bed. And what that means is basically you want to eat more of your meals towards the beginning of the day, towards the middle of the day, and not load up right before you go to bed. If you think about food as being like kind of your fuel for the day, you want to fuel up in the morning. So make sure you have that good breakfast. A lot of people skip breakfast. You don't want to do that. Fuel up because you know by 9 a.m. you're going to use it all up on your first 2 hours in the shift from all the stuff that's happening. So definitely eat a good breakfast. Eat some good snacks if you can. Eat your lunch, even if your lunch is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the morning if you're night shift. Eat something good for that. And then in the morning on night shift or in the evening on day shift, you know, have something to eat. You're going to need to replenish from the crazy shift you just had. But meal of the day, you don't need to really fuel up to wind down for bed, if that makes sense. And we'll talk more about that in future talks, and I'm sure that Amy will be having a lot of good tips too in her talks. So exercise, like I said, one of my things I talk to people about, they're like, well, should I do cardio? Should I do strength training? What should I do? And I always say that my general rule is 3 for me. And what that means is you need all 3 factors. And those 3 factors are you need strength training, you need cardio, you need the stretching and the lengthening and relaxing. All 3 factors have to go into place to have a well-balanced what I call movement routine. Because like I said, it doesn't have to be in the gym getting your work on, but movement. You have to have all of those factors. So whether it's outside riding your bicycle, doing a dance class, for cardio, and then strength training, lifting stuff, or even your own body weight. Like some people don't look at yoga as strength training, but it's actually very big strength training. You're basically holding your own body weight on maybe one leg in some positions. So there's a lot of strength training that goes into yoga, and then obviously yoga, Pilates, and those kind of things are very big for the stretching and lengthening part. And so for me, when I had all my heart arrhythmia issue stuff, I was doing all of the hardcore exercises. I loved working out at the gym and doing the heavy weights. And I had a trainer that was an ex-Marine, so he kicked my butt. But I wasn't doing any of the yoga stuff. And so now yoga is a huge part of my life. But I had to get that balance. I had to have the three for me. I was missing one of the components. And like I said earlier, you need to make it fun. You don't want to dread being active. Your body actually craves to be active, but don't do stuff you hate. Like, I personally hate running. I am not a runner. I have tried to do some 5Ks, and I had to train for that because I just don't like running. But if you ask me to do anything else, swimming, rollerblading, biking, climbing, whatever it may be, I will totally be down for that. So don't feel like you have to do a certain exercise just because everybody else is doing it or people say it's healthy. Find the thing you love. Think about when you were a little kid. We were all pretty active kids. We liked being outside. Some of us, don't remember a world before the technology and the cell phones and all that, but still pretty active people. We like to do things. And so think about the things you actually like to do. And if you don't know, then this is a great opportunity to experiment. Get out there and find out what it is you do like to do. Like, try new things. Like, I never thought I would try, what was it? Fencing. I tried fencing with the pokey sticks. I can't even think of the words of what they're called, but who would have ever thought? I at least tried it. Wasn't my favorite thing, but I learned a lot of stuff about it. It was pretty cool. So you just never know. You might find your new passion, but get out there and try new things. And everything that causes you to move counts. So it doesn't have to be strictly one thing or the other. And, if you're in a relationship, there are certain movements that you can have with your partner. That counts. It is still physical activity. And I won't get into detail of that. You guys can fill in the blanks. But anything you do that is not sitting on a couch or sitting on a chair or lying in bed counts as activity. So you can do a lot of different things. Move your body. That is the key takeaway from that. And our jobs make it very easy because we can't sit around at our jobs. So we'll get into more about exercise, more details. These are just quick tidbits real quick for this talk. And then as far as sleep, if you wait to sleep until you die, you will be dead sooner. And I can't remember where I found this quote or who said it to me, but I thought that was very true, very interesting, because a lot of people will say, oh, I can sleep when I die. Well, then guess what? You find that sooner, because we need to sleep. We need to rejuvenate. It's just part of the design plan of our bodies. There's a certain amount of activity. There's a certain amount of being awake. And then at nighttime, it's almost like, if you think about your body, there's the day shift and the night shift, just like in our hospital world. At nighttime, the night shift comes on, and the night shift for your body basically has to be a cleanup crew from the mess that the day shift made. And you guys probably see that in the hospital too. I did night shift as well, so I know sometimes the day shift left terrible messes, but then I also work day shift and know how chaotic those days go, and sometimes you can't help it. So at nighttime, your body has almost like a second shift crew that comes in while you're sleeping. There's all kinds of stuff happening. There's cells that are dying and then new ones being made. There's like people cleaning out the toxins. There's just, like, if you can imagine, this whole crew comes in while you're sleeping. So your body never is actually fully doing nothing. So if you don't give that second shift a chance to come in and do what they need to do while you're sleeping, then you're kind of leaving the mess there for the next day and starting out with mess as well. And I don't know if you've ever thought about it from that perspective, but if you go back to our basic anatomy and physiology and how these things work, yeah, you're basically cheating your body out of the cleanup crew that comes in at nighttime. So go to sleep. Let them do their job. Put the mind down. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, I went to bed last night at 9 p.m. and I got up at 8 p.m. That's plenty of sleep, but they weren't actually sleeping that whole time. They were in bed, but maybe they were on Facebook or they were on Instagram and they're scrolling through and they're counting that as, oh, this is what time I went to bed. So be sure that your time in bed is legitimately time in bed. Like, make your room a place that is considered a place for rest, relaxation, sleep. Don't bring the chaos into your bedroom. Don't have that association. If you're not ready to go to sleep and you want to watch more TV, then watch TV maybe in the living room. Don't bring it into your bedroom. Let your bedroom be a place for two things, sleep and sex. And so these are the two things that you guys can keep in the bedroom and make it that way. So it'll have that association. And I know that's really important, and people are saying, oh, you're right. Once I kind of made my bedroom a more like spa environment, I found that I slept better. I found that, the dimming of the lights made me sleepier, and I didn't need to sit there on Facebook for 2 hours to try and get tired. 'Cause it's actually counterproductive. And I've had a lot of clients who have literally revamped their entire bedroom after we had a huge talk about sleep and sleep environment. And they said it changed their lives. And so it's just the simple things like that that can make a huge difference on your sleep pattern. And end your day with gratitude. And I know this may sound so cliche, and you've probably seen so many, posts and memes and inspirational speakers, and they all say this, but it's true. That's the reason everyone's saying it, is because there's so much benefit coming from it. End your day with gratitude. Be thankful for the fact that, if nothing else, that you're still alive and that you had a job to go to, and these things that sound so simple and yeah, I get it. You don't even know how my day was. But if you can find 3 things in every day that went well for you, even if the first thing that you have to mention is, well, I woke up this morning. There you go. That's already 1. Now find 2 more things. And then there's other days we have where it's easy. You can think of 10 things that went well for your day. But just reminding yourself of the things that have went well, the reminding of the blessings, the reminding of the things that came into your life that maybe you took for granted because there was a lot of not so good things happening in your day. Keep just focusing on the things that went well, and you'll start to see a different shift in your mindset. You'll start to feel a little bit more positive. You'll start to feel a little bit more restful. When you think of those things right before bed, it makes it easier to shut the mind down. And so that's an important component of trying to get to sleep. So the big takeaway that I want you guys to really think about is, it's just as true in the hospital world as in airplanes. If you travel and you're a traveler and you're flying a lot, and you've heard this speech 1,000 times on the airplane about putting the mask on yourself before a child or other people, because you can't help them if you're knocked out because you haven't gotten any oxygen. So there's a little cartoon that I have on this slide. Basically says, put your own oxygen mask on before assisting others. Seriously, you can't help anyone if you're dead, which is so true. It may not go to that drastic extreme all the time, but we need to take care of ourselves as healthcare providers. It's very important. And if you're like, that's hard for me to do, great. Join in on some of these other talks. We're going to help get through that process. And you now have me as your online virtual RN health coach that can kind of walk you through some of these things. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining me today. Thank you for getting onto this call. I know we all have busy lives, but I want you guys to take away from this that taking care of you is important, so make that a priority in your life. You can follow me on any of the social media sites at YouHeartLife. If you have any questions or comments, you can always email me at youheartlife@gmail.com. And of course, thank you, Aya Health, for having this opportunity for both me to be able to teach you guys and both you guys to actually learn. So this is going to be a fun journey, and I look forward to seeing you guys on future calls that we're going to have. And thank you. And if you have any questions, you can type in the chat box at the end of this call, and I will spend the next couple minutes getting to your questions, comments, and concerns. And thank you, everyone, from joining from all over the time frames, all over the country. Have a good day. Thank you.